meeting of Wednesday, February 19th to order. And if we could conduct the roll call, please.
Ms. Gaskin?
Present.
Mr. Moldaver?
Here.
Ms. Weber?
Here.
Ms. Silva?
Here.
Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from November 13th, 2019, and those are attached. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve the draft minutes of the November 13th, 2019 meeting as submitted.
Okay, moved by Lee,
I'll second that.
second by Betsy. And any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? And abstentions, and I'm going to assume that Sophia is abstaining. Okay, great. Thank you very much. And we have George Johnson tonight. And George, are there any agenda adjustments?
No, not this evening.
And any comments from members of the public? Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Besides welcoming Sophia, it's very exciting to have you. A lot of people think that I'm going to be promoting Saturday, February 22nd's annual Star King Rummage Sale at the Earl Warren Showgrounds from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., but you'd actually be so wrong. What I'm trying to do is remind all the people who are watching and listening intently that on Friday, March 13th, at the beautiful Ritz-Carlton Bacara, there's going to be a free reception to launch the annual Scape art exhibit, which is a benefit for the Gaviota Coast Conservancy, and the sale goes on Saturday the 14th. So any member of the public who's really interested in fine landscape art or the beautiful Bacara or supporting good causes, please come by on the 13th and 14th if you have any money left after the Star King sale.
Thank you, Lee. Other public comments? Hearing none, we'll move to committee member and staff communications. Any comments from the committee first? Other than I heartily welcome Sophia.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
And staff communication.
Yeah, just wanted to welcome Sophia. Sophia Silver's our new Creeks Committee member, and so she's here. I don't know if you want to say a little bit about yourself. If not, that's okay, but you're welcome to now.
Sure. Did it work?
Yeah.
Okay. I graduated, I actually went to Santa Barbara City College, so you did my graduation speech. Yeah, I finished City College in 2016 and then brushed through UCSB in 2017, and I did environmental science and political science, so this stuff is like right up my alley. I currently work at the startup Nomad, which is like literally I walked here from there. We're right next to the press room behind from Dargan, so we like share that parking lot with them. I live over like near the hospital and love Santa Barbara. It's such a great community, and like just wanted to get more involved, so that's why I decided to do the sign up for the committee. And so the Creeks Committee sounded really cool, so that's why I'm here. But yeah, any questions, I'm an open book.
We're delighted.
All right, thank you. Thank you. We're glad to have you here. So that's all that I have tonight.
And we have election of vice chair for 2020, and it is my understanding that we have an interested committee member in the form of Betsy Weber. And Betsy, I'm assuming you would accept if so nominated and elected? I would. That'd be great.
Actually, Madam Chair, I would like to officially nominate Betsy Weber to be our vice chair for 2020.
And is there a second?
I also nominate Betsy Weber.
Okay, and so we've got a second with Sophia. Further discussion? Thank you so much for your service. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Great, welcome. Thank you. All right, 2020 subcommittee appointments, and we have two subcommittees, and we'll first start with the budget subcommittee. The members from 2019 are shown on page 2 of the agenda item 8 attachment, and the nature or structure of this committee is that the chair of the committee serves as a member, as well as two additional committee members. So in Christie's place, it would be me. And my understanding is, Lee, you wish to continue to serve in this capacity? And I'm assuming Penny does as well. So unless there is any concern, we'd like to propose that the subcommittee membership for the Budget Subcommittee of 2020 is Lori Gaskin, Penny Owens, and Lee Moldaver. And then for Education and Outreach, we're assuming Penny would like to continue in that capacity. Betsy, we understand you would be interested in continuing?
I'd be happy to.
And actually, was Sophia, you had expressed an interest in education?
Yes,
So would it be Penny, Betsy, and Sophia?
yes.
Excellent. Questions? Okay, so given that structure, may I have a motion to approve the 2020 Subcommittee membership for Budget and Education and Outreach?
Madam Chair, I would move to approve the nominees for both the Budget Committee and the Education Outreach Committee as previously discussed.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sophia. Discussion? Sure. Budget is Lori Gaskin, Penny Owens, and Lee Moldaver. Education and Outreach, which is our ad hoc committee, is Penny Owens, Betsy Weber, and Sophia Silva. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Thank you. Great. All right. And our business items, fiscal year 2019 Water Quality Research and Monitoring Program Summary, and we have Jill Murray with us tonight. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I'm going to talk tonight about some select results from our previous fiscal year of water quality sampling and research. So this represents sampling that went back to June 18 to July 19. And I'll focus very qualitatively on the Andre Clark Bird Refuge, some of our restoration projects, drought recovery, and just go over what we're doing for our permit monitoring. In general, this is a very qualitative presentation, which might work well since we have a new member. And committee member Silva, I often go over our goals and purposes behind the monitoring. I'm not going to do that this time, but it's in the staff report. And then if you have any questions, prior to the next meeting, feel free to reach out to me.
Great, thanks.
Okay, and then I'll finish with our next steps. Okay, so you all know that we've been doing a lot of monitoring at the bird refuge, but I just wanted to, sometimes we might talk about specific results. I just wanted to give you a big picture of what we're doing over there and why. And we do storm monitoring, and we did some of this recently. We're comparing nutrient loads that are coming into the bird refuge from the different sub-watersheds around it. So during a rain event, we'll go and collect samples at 5 different points where storm drains are discharging into the bird refuge and compare the nutrient concentrations. We also study the impacts of the breach events when the lagoon in front of the bird refuge opens and discharges to the ocean. We're concerned about the potential for nutrients and indicator bacteria to degrade the water quality. So we've been sampling that. And then we do also a lot of year-round monitoring in dry weather. And this is targeted around trying to understand odor events and to collect baseline data for future project monitoring and to help prioritize and strategize what might work best at the bird refuge. We have automated sondes. Sonde is a technical term that basically means it means sensor plus data logger. And we have them collecting conductivity, dissolved oxygen, and temperature every 10 minutes, and pH in the bird refuge. We have 2 in the bird refuge and 1 in the lagoon, although the one in the lagoon, I think, just was vandalized today, in the middle of the day. Hopefully it will be out soon. We have to kayak out there to take them out of the water and then bring them back and download the data and clean them every couple of weeks. And we sample then manually. We do grab samples at the bird refuge, in the beach lagoon, and the surf zone weekly for indicator bacteria and all of those same parameters, dissolved oxygen, conductivity, et cetera. And we can then kind of ground truth our sonde deployments and what we're getting from there. This year, our field work is primarily conducted by our watershed stewards, and this is like an AmeriCorps for watersheds, and we have Taylor Pentiga and Kevin Nolan this year, and they've been really helpful. Whoops. So, so far, very qualitatively, the results of our storm monitoring, we still need several more storms for the nutrient loading study before we're really going to be able to compare the different sub-watersheds. There's just so much natural variability in nutrient concentrations. We know from our breach events that we've studied that we do have short-term impacts to beach water quality, but they're very similar to other lagoons, even though you can look in the bird refuge and that water oftentimes appears to have, so much more chlorophyll and nutrients than some of our other beach lagoons. It just gets diluted so quickly that it's really similar to the other lagoons that breach. For our year-round monitoring, we have really long periods of low dissolved oxygen. That's from the surface to the bottom of the bird refuge, and it can go on for weeks at a time, almost not even measurable. And yet we can still have no odor events. We haven't even had very many extreme odor events since we've started doing our monitoring, so we'll be there to try to interpret the next one that occurs. But this has given us great baseline conditions for our future restoration project. And it's helped feed into conceptual models, which seem to be required for most grant applications. And so we were able to just put this one together for a grant application a few months ago. We're still waiting on that, but I'm not going to go into the details at all, but it was able to, the granting agencies want us to be able to describe what is going on and what is really degrading water quality and what are the main drivers of ecological degradation. And we know here it's basically blocking the connectivity, and that leads to lack of circulation and really low dissolved oxygen over time. And then we could also provide them a conceptual model for our proposed project conditions. And, we know that if we do these two things, we are probably going to affect all of these other ecological processes. And we wouldn't be able to do that without all of our baseline monitoring. For our water quality improvement and restoration projects, we're sampling several projects now. Upper Arroyo Burrow at Barger, where we sample there quarterly and storm for nutrients, indicator bacteria, sediment, and toxicity. At the Arroyo Burrow open space, this is primarily storm related because it's really designed for storm-based water quality improvement, nutrients, indicator bacteria, and sediment. And for both of those, we sampled an upstream and a downstream point, and we're looking for improvement with the project. And then we have bioretention planters, and we only are able to sample these during storms. They're right on the Public Works building on Laguna Street, so that's our easiest sampling effort ever. And we do the input and output of nutrients, indicator bacteria, sediment, hydrocarbons, metals, and pesticides. And for all of these, we're really we're just collecting data right now. We need at least 3 to 5 more storms, so that's going to be a couple of years before we have, we need, depending on the variability of the parameter that we're looking at, usually like 15 to 30 pairs of data. So it takes a while. So hopefully we'll get you those results soon. Okay, now moving on to drought recovery. I've talked a lot about drought over the past several meetings. We've had normal rainfall over, or not the last several meetings, my last several meetings. We've had normal rainfall 2 of the last 3 years, and despite the official end of the drought, we do continue to see some problems. In some areas where we've looked at monitoring data from the groundwater wells, we do see a replenishment of shallow groundwater, but in other areas we still have long periods of dry creeks. For example, Sycamore Creek down by the zoo is dry most of the time. Our bioassessment scores are rebounding. That seems to be happening more quickly than I expected, so that's good news. And during the drought, we had a lot of improvements in beach water quality, and this was pointed out by Heal the Bay and all of their beach report cards. But now that we're having some more rainfall, what's happening? So I'm going to talk about that next. And this is something I used to give background on frequently. when we were doing a lot of microbial source tracking work, and we haven't been talking about that as much the last couple of years, so I haven't done a primer for a while, so I'm going to take the time to do that. So beach water quality grades and warnings are based on weekly monitoring that's conducted by the county. It's required by a state law called AB 411. And AB 411 requires the sampling in the summer months, April 1st to October 31st. Our county usually does it year-round. They do it at within the city. It's Arroyo Burro, Ledbetter, East Beach at Mission Creek, and East Beach at Sycamore Creek, and they do a bunch of other beaches in the county as well. It's most places with a freshwater discharge to the beach, storm drain or creek, and they take samples and have them processed and tested for fecal indicator bacteria, and I'll get into that on the next slide. But the groups that they test for, that they're required to test for, total coliform, fecal coliform, Enterococcus, and a total coliform to fecal coliform ratio. And if those are above certain thresholds, then they have to post the beach with a warning. It takes at least 24 hours for them to collect the sample, get it processed, and then post. And then Heal the Bay, an NGO, calculates grades. You can go on their website. You can get real-time results, weekly results. There's some models that predict the indicator bacteria on a daily basis. And then they do a yearly beach report card and a beach bummer list, which thankfully we were not on this year. Okay, so what are fecal indicator bacteria? They are always found in really high numbers in human and animal waste and in sewage. And they can, in water, indicate an increased health risk. Most of the studies that have shown health risks were done in places where untreated or partially treated sewage was discharged somewhat nearby. There have been a lot of other studies that don't show any correlation between fecal indicator bacteria and health risk. They don't, when we get these numbers back, they don't provide any information on what the source of the host organism was, whether it was an animal or human. And in fact, they can persist, these bacteria can persist in the environment and even grow in the environment, having nothing to do with fecal sources. And so everyone knows this is a problem, and a couple of decades of research have been done to try to figure out better indicators. But it's important to note that most pathogens are not indicator bacteria, and most indicator bacteria are not pathogens. And that's why we have turned to working with UCSB to use their DNA-based techniques for pollution tracking. And I'm not going to talk about that today, but probably talk about that the next time I present. And importantly, the impaired water bodies, that's a regulatory term, impaired water bodies and any associated TMDLs, or those would be regulated improvement requirements, are based on the FIB results at this time. And here's a graphic of what that looks like. So the red circles are pathogens. So there are a couple of, they're bacterial pathogens. They're contained within all of these groups of fecal indicator bacteria, but they're not the bulk of the indicator bacteria are not these pathogens. And in fact, most of what makes humans sick that they could catch in the water are viruses and protozoa, and not even included in these indicator bacteria tests. But it's supposed to be a proxy for illness risk. So given that background, what Heal the Bay has found, I'm not going to go into these graphs, there's a lot going on, but I can say, I'll just give you the upshot. During the drought, the grades for the Heal the Bay report card grades improved a lot for all over California, including Santa Barbara. And now that we've had a couple of years of rain, we're starting to see the return of the grades that aren't as great. And following on that, we have new, and I was really hoping Ms. Owens would be here because this is right up her alley as well. There are new bacteria criteria, and they've come from the EPA, they've gone through the State Water Board, they've been, but they haven't been included in our weekly sampling, our AB 411s, or any TMDLs yet. So we don't know when that will happen. But the upshot is that in the somewhat near future, we will not be looking at total coliform for the ocean. and we won't be looking at that fecal total ratio. Heal the Bay pushed the California to keep fecal coliform, even though the rest of the country is only looking at Enterococcus in marine water. And based on what we've looked at previously, when we've run through some of the stats, we should see an overall reduction in beach warnings of about 25% just from changing what we're testing. Hopefully that gets us closer to understanding real risk. And then in the creeks and estuaries, in the creeks, we'll only be looking at E. coli, and in the estuaries, only Enterococcus. How this might affect our 303D, these are our impaired bodies. This is very technical, very jargony, but you've heard of impaired water bodies. These are what the State Water Board considers creeks that need improvement sooner than later for particular parameters. And we have many creeks and beaches that are listed as impaired for indicator bacteria. Once these new bacteria criteria are promulgated through the system, we'll have many, many fewer impaired water bodies. So without doing anything, you should see an improvement in regulated beach water quality. That doesn't keep us from wanting to understand if there are any real human risks, and we will continue to do that. Okay, finishing up, just letting you know what we do for our general permit monitoring. We have to do weekly monitoring for FIB at most of our creeks. We have to do wet weather testing for toxicity, especially in Mission Creek. We have to continually calculate our load reductions from our water quality improvement projects, such as the permeable pavers. We have to write a yearly performance evaluation assessment and improvement plan, sort of how our overall stormwater program has improved in water quality, annual reporting, a 5-year report, and now we kind of just maintain this reporting until we, status quo until we get our new permit. And I'll finish with, just need to finish this report and get it online for you all and come back with results from the 2020 research plan and our, for your approval, the 2021 research plan in June. And I'll take any questions.
Questions of Jill?
Yes, Member Moldaver.
Thank you, Dr. Murray, for a really good report. And thank you for referencing some of the more advanced studies that our UCSB friends under Trish Holden sometimes provide us. For the benefit of our new committee member, you're really good about avoiding jargon generally, but I noticed you got into several really quick TMDLs without spelling those out. And so for those who are watching at home or for other members of the committee, could you remind us what those are?
Certainly. I can tell you what it stands for. It stands for total maximum daily load. That still is technical jargon. It is basically a plan to improve water quality for that particular parameter or impairment. And it comes from the State Water Board and our Central Coast Water Board. And they can be really involved, both coming up with the plan and then the implementation that is required by the plan. So if we can get to the sources of any of those impairments and fix them ourselves, we're much better off.
And I had a question. How successful are we through DNA, through our technology that we use, of truly finding sources for these pollutants as well as health risks?
We have been amazingly successful in this, and we just haven't talked about it much since you came onto the committee. So we were we funded UCSB for several years. we were lead PIs on a grant that gave us money to then also fund UCSB. The last several years, I think we had 4 projects where we were kind of in charge and presenting results regularly. And then the last couple of years, Dr. Holden has been a PI on a very large grant, and so it's not my place really to talk about her results, but I expect you will hear from her eventually. We've used the techniques to go up storm drain networks and find leaking sewer pipes that are getting into storm drains. We know from her research that most of the FIB at our beaches are probably coming from birds. They and then some from dogs. And as we've talked about, there can also be a very weak urban human signal, and that's what she's really trying to tease apart right now.
Did I understand correctly that there's been more warnings at East Beach at Mission Creek? And do we know why or what the indicators are on that?
Okay, Chairmember Weber, was that from that slide or from recent results that you've seen?
No, I thought you said that on your, we were talking about drought recovery.
Oh. Okay. Oh, let's see. Did I say especially? No. There were some beach warnings this year at Mission more frequently than some of our other beaches. And based on our observations, we believe that is from a large congregation of seagulls on the beach there recently.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jill. That was really informative. Appreciate that.
Okay, please don't hesitate to reach out to me to explain anything else in more detail.
You're always very concise and clear, and it helps tremendously. All right, Creeks Advisory Committee composition, roles, and responsibilities. And George, did you want to?
Yeah, I'll go over this
Launch.
a little bit. Excuse me. So tonight we just wanted to go. We have a new member, and then it's always good to refresh these. The composition, roles, and responsibilities of the committee. This committee was formed when Measure B was passed, and then the Creeks Division was created, and that was back in 2000, December of 2000. And then more recently in 2008, the committee agreed on the different roles and responsibilities, and provides guidelines consistent with other advisory committees in the city that members should plan to attend regular monthly meetings as approved in the annual meeting schedule, familiarize themselves with meeting packet materials, be prepared to vote on action items, basically just be prepared, and then also to know some of the important legal requirements when you're serving on a committee, such as Robert's Rules of Orders, the Brown Act, and then ethics training and annual filing of your conflict of interest forms with the state. So I'll just briefly go over, not every single one, but the composition of the committee. There's supposed to be 7 total members. We have 6 right now. We have 1 vacant position. They're appointed by the city council, and there's term limits of 4 years, and they can serve on liaisons to various committees. The role of the committee members is be familiar with these rules, such as Robert's Rules of Order and the Brown Act, to review your packets and understand the issues, hopefully prior to the meeting, so you can ask any questions. And if you do have clarifying questions, we as staff appreciate those prior to the meeting. We can usually give a more complete answer than during the meeting, but if you can't do that, we're always welcome to try and answer your questions. Just to separate personal views, be an ambassador for the program, things like that. And then we just hope that people can show up to the meetings when they're scheduled, show up on time, and just be ready for the meetings. That, just in general, be professional about it's a responsibility, and we realize you're volunteering, and we do really appreciate that, but we do hope that everyone takes it seriously. And representation of the committee at public meetings. Sometimes the committee will go to city council or some other public meeting to represent all of you, and that's fine if it's sanctioned by the committee to do that. And then usually the chair does that. The vice chair can also do that if they elect, or if the committee elects that, or even just a regular chair member can be the representative. We do ask that if committee members do go to public meetings and do speak about an issue, that they make sure and clarify that they're not speaking from the committee standpoint, just from their personal standpoint, or from some other group they may be with. And that's pretty much it. They're basic. There's nothing, very complicated about them, but we just wanted to go over them. We haven't probably talked about them in years, maybe since 2008, since they were developed. So we wanted to review them, and if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask me, or you guys can discuss it, obviously, if you prefer.
Questions or comments? Lee, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, George, for your overview, I would simply point out, both for those of us who are here and those of us who aren't, that the Creek and Watershed staff not only have many, many duties besides this meeting, but they also have lives and families. And so when we receive a notification of an upcoming meeting, whether it's the meeting as a whole or a committee meeting, if you know from your schedule that you are coming, it would be great to RSVP as quickly as possible. And similarly, if you know pretty far in advance from the day, date, and time that you can't come, to also please let the staff know as early as possible so that they can determine for us and for our liaison, Councilwoman Sneddon, and for other people who come, whether we're going to have a quorum to actually have a meeting. And some of the meetings are televised, and there are people at home who are watching. And I know sometimes our staff is sweating right down to the last minute about whether we're going to have a quorum. And as Councilwoman Sneddon remembers, sometimes the regrets don't arrive until 30 or 40 minutes before the scheduled meeting time, when there are already people assembled to meet. So I would hope that people, as they go along during the year, we have the tentative schedule we're going to get to next. As soon as you know that you can or cannot come, please let the staff know, and if your plans should change, let them know as quickly as possible.
I would echo Lee's comments. We understand as a volunteer group that there will be conflicts, but the main point is that the staff knows if there is a quorum so that business can be conducted. So thank you, Lee, and thank you, George, for reminding us of our roles and responsibilities. We appreciate that. And the meeting begins promptly at 5:30, and we have a scheduled presentation, so it's important to honor that. All right, any other comments or thoughts? Okay. Well, thank you. And on to the final agenda item, 9C, which is our regular meeting schedule. And that is attached to our agenda. And I would entertain a motion for approval of the 2020 meetings.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve and officially adopt the draft schedule for all our committee meetings for the year 2020 as submitted.
Thank you, Lee. And a second with Enra. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, thank you. Hearing nothing else, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.